June 26, 1995. A white van careens off Interstate 95 in Emporia, Virginia. The crash is violent. 2 passengers inside. The driver survives. The passenger does not. When police arrive at the scene, they find a young man, approximately 19 years old, dead from his injuries. But there's no wallet, no ID, no way to identify him. The only clues to his identity? 2 ticket stubs in his pocket. Grateful Dead concert tickets from the night before. For the next 20 years, this young man will be known only as Grateful Doe. His face, too damaged to recognize. His fingerprints, not in any database. His family, nowhere to be found. Police tried everything. Missing persons reports, dental records. Nothing matched. The case went cold. But the internet never forgot. Fast forward to late 2015, 20 years after the crash. A Reddit user named Steve is scrolling through a Facebook group dedicated to solving the Grateful Doe case. Thousands of people from around the world have been sharing theories, comparing missing persons' photos, analyzing every detail. Then Steve sees something that makes him stop cold. The forensic reconstruction. The eyes. The jawline. Steve recognizes them. This looks exactly like his former roommate from Illinois, a guy he lived with years ago, a guy who loved the Grateful Dead, a guy named Jason Callahan. Steve immediately posts his theory to the group, along with old photographs of Jason. Within hours, the post explodes. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, and then a message that changes everything. Shannon Michelson, a woman from South Carolina, sees the photo Steve posted. Her hands start shaking. She zooms in on the image. The nose, the smile, the eyes. She knows his face. This is her half-brother, Jason Patrick Callahan. The brother she thought had simply moved away and lost touch. The brother she never reported missing because she assumed he was living his life somewhere else. Jason was born April 18, 1976. He grew up in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He loved music, especially the Grateful Dead. In June 1995, at just 19 years old, he told his family he was going to follow the band on tour. They never heard from him again. His mother, Carolyn, assumed he was traveling, living the hippie lifestyle. She had no idea that just days after leaving home, Jason would be killed in that crash in Virginia. Shannon contacted authorities immediately. She provided DNA samples. So did other family members. The testing began. Initial results were inconclusive, but in early 2016, after further analysis, the results came back. It was a match. After 20 years, Grateful Doe finally had a name: Jason Patrick Callahan. The internet had done what law enforcement could not. A Reddit user, a Facebook group, and thousands of strangers who refused to let Jason be forgotten had given him his identity back. His family finally had answers. His mother could finally grieve. And Jason Patrick Callahan could finally rest in peace. No longer a nameless Doe, but a son, a brother, and a person who mattered. Jason's story proves that sometimes the smallest clue can unlock the biggest mystery. But what happens when the clue is not a photograph, but a sound, a voice, a recording that sends chills down your spine? That's exactly what happened in our next case. September 2016. A family in rural Pennsylvania wakes up to discover their 23-year-old daughter, Sarah, missing from her apartment. No signs of struggle, no forced entry, just an empty bed and her car still parked outside. Police begin a standard missing persons investigation. But then, 3 days later, Sarah's mother receives a voicemail that was left on her phone at 2:47 in the morning. A voicemail that shouldn't exist. The voice is barely audible. Breathing, muffled words, background sound that don't make sense. Police analyze the recording, but can't determine where it came from. The number shows as blocked. The timestamp places it 48 hours after Sarah disappeared. And the voice? It might be Sarah, or it might not be. Desperate for answers, Sarah's family posts a voicemail to Reddit. Within hours, the post explodes. Thousands of users from around the world begin analyzing every second of the 47-second recording. audio engineers, linguists, former FBI analysts, all working together to decode what Sarah might be trying to say. A user named AudioTech87 runs a recording through professional audio enhancement software. He isolates background frequencies, removes static, amplifies the voice, and suddenly words begin to emerge. Sarah's saying something, but it's not what anyone expected. Help, basement, Route 22. 3 words that change everything. But there's more. In the background, another sound. A sound that makes everyone stop cold. A train. The unmistakable sound of a freight train passing nearby. And not just any train. A specific type of horn. A specific rhythm. Reddit users who work for railroad companies immediately recognize it. It's a Norfolk Southern freight train. And based on the horn pattern and timing, they can narrow down exactly which route it is. Route 22 runs parallel to a Norfolk Southern freight line for exactly 14 miles through rural Pennsylvania. Along that stretch, there are only 7 buildings with basements close enough to the tracks to hear that specific horn pattern. 7 possible locations where Sarah might be. Reddit users begin cross-referencing property records, satellite imagery, street view photos. They create a spreadsheet, a map, a complete breakdown of every structure along that 14-mile stretch. And then, one user notices something. An abandoned warehouse at mile marker 47. The property records show it was foreclosed 6 months earlier. But satellite imagery from 2 weeks ago shows fresh tire tracks in the dirt driveway. Someone has been there recently. Reddit users immediately alert police. Within 2 hours, a SWAT team surrounds the building. Officers breach the basement door. Flashlights sweep the darkness. And there, in the corner, they find her. Sarah, alive, bound, terrified, but alive. She had been held captive for 5 days by someone she met online. Someone who thought he could get away with it. He didn't count on the internet fighting back. Sarah was rescued because thousands of strangers refused to give up. Because audio engineers donated their time. Because railroad workers recognized the sound. Because the internet became a force for good. One voicemail, one community, one life saved. Sarah's rescue proves that sometimes the evidence we need is hiding in plain sight or in plain sound. But what happens when the evidence is buried for decades? When technology finally catches up to a cold case that everyone thought was unsolvable? That's where our final story takes us. March 18, 1964. Hazleton, Pennsylvania. 9-year-old Marise Chiverella leaves her home at 8:10 in the morning. She's walking to school, just like she does every day. Her route takes her through a quiet neighborhood, less than a quarter mile from her front door. But Marise never makes it to class. By 8:30, her body is discovered in a coal pit. She's been strangled, assaulted, left in the cold. Police immediately launch an investigation. They interview hundreds of people. They collect evidence. They have DNA samples from the crime scene. But in 1964, DNA testing doesn't exist yet. The case goes cold. Years turn into decades. Marisa's family never stops hoping for answers. But as time passes, hope begins to fade. Until 2020, 56 years later, when a college student changes everything. Eric Schubert is a 20-year-old college student studying genetic genealogy. He volunteers his time helping police solve cold cases using public DNA databases. In 2020, detectives in Hazleton reach out to him. They have DNA from Marisa's killer, preserved from 1964. Can he help identify who it belongs to? Eric uploads the killer's DNA profile to GEDmatch, a public genealogy database. Within hours, he gets a hit, a distant relative, someone who shares DNA with the killer. Eric begins building a family tree. He traces lineages. He cross-references birth records, death certificates, census data. He works backwards through generations. And then, after weeks of painstaking research, he narrows it down to one man, James Paul Forte, a coal delivery driver who lived just blocks away from Marise in 1964. He was 22 years old when she was killed. He had access to the coal pit where her body was found. and he was never on police radar. Not once in 56 years. There's just one problem. James Forte died in 1980, 16 years after Marisa's murder. He took his secrets to the grave, but his DNA didn't die with him. In February 2022, police obtained a court order to exhume Forte's body. They extract DNA samples from his remains, and they wait for the results. The DNA is sent to a forensic lab. Analysts compare it to the DNA collected from Marisa's body in 1964, the samples that have been preserved for nearly 6 decades. And on February 10th, 2022, the results come back. It's a match, a perfect match. After 58 years, Marisa's killer finally has a name. Police hold a press conference. They announce that the murder of Marise Chiverella has been solved. The oldest cold case in Pennsylvania history, solved by a 20-year-old college student and DNA technology that didn't exist when the crime was committed. For Marisa's family, the news brings a flood of emotions. Relief, grief, anger, but most of all, closure. Her brother, who was just a child when she was killed, finally knows what happened to his sister. Her nieces and nephews, who never got to meet her, finally have answers. And Marise, the 9-year-old girl who never made it to school that day, can finally rest in peace knowing her killer has been identified. The Hazleton community held a memorial service in Marisa's honor. 58 years after her death, hundreds of people gathered to remember the little girl who was taken too soon, and to celebrate the technology, the dedication, and the student who refused to let her case remain unsolved. 3 cases, 3 mysteries, 3 communities that refused to give up. Jason Callahan was identified by a Reddit user who recognized his face. Sarah was rescued because strangers analyzed a voicemail. And Marise Chiverella got justice because a college student knew how to read DNA. These stories prove that no case is ever truly cold. Not when people care enough to keep searching. If you want to see more cases solved by internet sleuths, hit that subscribe button. And tell me in the comments, which unsolved case do you think deserves this kind of attention? Your suggestion could be my next deep dive. Thanks for watching, and remember, every clue matters.